First of all, hello everybody. Can you hear me? Can anybody put hands up if you can't? Okay, I'm a bit sort of vertically challenged, so I'll try my best. I have no problems in bringing my teenagers to attention, but clearly my voice doesn't travel across the auditorium. So I'm Jan Zietara. I'm Head of Programme Delivery in Health Education England. I'm also the Dementia Education and Training Project Lead, and I'm here today with my colleague Dominique Henson and, as I say, Dr. Michelle Heward, who is from Bournemouth University. Health Education England has the sort of workforce and education training remit. I'm sure that you've all heard of Health Education England. So it's very much about ensuring the workforce has the right skills, behaviours, values and competencies in order to deliver the sort of mandate deliverables, the conditions that are identified in the mandate, and also to ensure that the workforce transformation agenda takes place. So this slide here is really our starting block, because actually at the centre of this is the patient, the person with lived experience. And Health Education England sort of stands shoulder to shoulder with the other arm's length bodies here in the Department of Health. We're part of the programme board. And it's really important that we focus on what good care looks like. That's sort of one of our starting blocks. And in fact, you can take dementia out here. This is what does good care look like. And I work very closely with colleagues in Skills for Care. So we have the sort of health, the sort of acute hospital sort of agenda, and Skills for Care very much focusing on the sort of social care sector. And this slide is sort of devised to really share with you some of the principles that we'd identified about what good care looks like, and in particular what good dementia care looks like. And it's very much focused around sort of person-centred care, and that's a theme that we've heard today. But I think also what's really critical, and this is where Health Education England comes in, it's around underpinning that care with really high quality education and training. This next slide, I'm hoping that most of you in the room will be familiar with the Dementia Education and Training Framework. But if not, let me just build you a little bit of context. So where does Health Education England fit in with the Dementia 2020 Challenge? We were tasked with ensuring resources were available to all staff to support dementia awareness. And also, for those who are working more regularly with people living with dementia, sort of higher levels of training. And so the Dementia Education and Training Framework, again, was a piece of work that was developed in partnership with Skills for Health and Skills for Care, and it covers all health and social care, and educators and carers looking after those who are living with dementia. And it's set over a three-tier structure. And I've set those out really as a bit of an aide-memoire. I'm conscious from the discussions earlier on today that not everybody is cited on the framework. And really this is the foundation on which Health Education England's work is based. And if my colleague James Cross was here today from Skills for Care, he would be saying, but this is the sort of training standards platform for the social care sector, and indeed for sort of housing and beyond. So this is the framework, and the benefits of that framework is around setting out the competencies that individuals who are looking after people living with dementia, these are the competencies that they need. So the first tier is around raising awareness, the expectation that all staff have that level of training. Tier 2, as I say, requires a higher level of understanding and skill. And Tier 3, we consider is reserved for those with those working in a leadership role, those working in a clinical education role. The case study that I'm coming today to share with you is our dementia education and learning through simulation. And the reason why I've sort of shared that slide with you, because it was important that you had the context of the framework and can see where this particular case study fits in. You'd be aware that there's a lot of dementia resources out there for raising awareness, and this is actually focusing on the tier 2 levels, and indeed some of the competencies that are included within those. And we have focused on this, our initial focus very much on dementia awareness tools, and 17-18 focusing on these higher tiers. There's a real appetite for this, and organisations coming to us and saying, well, we're not quite sure where we're going to get these resources from. Our current resources don't necessarily map to the framework. So what support can Health Education England bring to this whole agenda? So what is DELTS? It's a simulation-based package, and it's designed for health and care professionals in all settings, including the acute setting. We'll hear later it's transferable. It was originally developed by colleagues within Health Education England working across Thames Valley back in 2013 and 14. And mentioned one of my colleagues there, Sue Clark, was working as a clinical fellow in Health Education England at the time. And this is a piece of work that she took forward with a range of other individuals supporting her. And her underlying principle is fundamental to DELTS. And this is about understanding the lived experience by putting your delegates into the shoes of the person with dementia, and to really get that true understanding of what it is like to consider their needs, and then to try and adjust one's practice accordingly. Simulation is key to that. So we had the original DELTS package that Sue and her team devised. But that was created before the framework came online. And so we were very conscious that it needed some alignment. And also, several years on, a need for a review and refresh to bring into consideration other developments that were going on in education and training. And you may be familiar with the research that was commissioned on behalf of Health Education England from Leeds Beckett University that was considering what works in dementia education and training. So with all of these sort of things running in parallel, we wanted to bring all of this together so we could share a really high quality product. So we set about exploring how could we update DELTS, and I'm not an academic, and so we commissioned Bournemouth University, Michelle and her team, to review DELTS. We didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We wanted to take into consideration the hard work that Sue and her team had developed, but we wanted to bring it up to date so that it was fit for practice and that it was as up to date as we possibly could make it. So Professor Claire Sir, that led the What Works survey, was also brought on board, along with another range of sort of subject matter experts and colleagues delivering education and training and so forth. The important thing is that our expectation from Health Education England, Skills for Health, Skills for Care, is that our training aligns to the framework, and we have that expectation of others. Therefore, we needed to ensure that any training offer we had, matched that framework too. So in terms of the characteristics of DELTS, what's different? It's a simulation toolkit. It can be rolled out as a 4-hour training session. It can be adapted to suit local need, but I would say that we would recommend that you are mindful about the emerging findings from the What Works survey. And one of the hallmarks of success is that for education and training to have meaning, have impact, and have any likelihood of changing somebody's practice, then actually there are some parameters in terms of the duration of that training. And actually 3 hours is probably the minimum. And so this sort of starts to bring in, delts to picking up some of those good practice principles. It's based on a train the trainer package, and that is important because we want to try and put resources out there that are not expensive, that enable organisations to download the resources, pick them up and run with them without any cost. That's not to say organisations can actually go out and purchase off-the-shelf programmes. Clearly you can, and that is the prerogative of organisations in an open market. But what we're saying is that if you're not in that place at this point in time, here are some resources that tap into the Tier 2, deliver 3 of the 12 areas of Tier 2, devises the core one, so picking up on Charles's comments just now, the risk reduction agenda, the person-centred care, and communication, interaction and behaviour. These are really core themes of which a lot of the other subject themes fall out of. If you get these right, you're probably going to be a long way of getting the others right as well. What we do say is that these training packages, if it's being delivered in training the trainer, because that's going to get pace at speed, it will be delivered at pace, it would be spread at speed. You do need to have somebody who is an experienced trainer to do this. You cannot pick a member of staff who has not done any training and put them in that situation. If you're identifying individuals, that is a prerequisite of this, because we're mindful of the duration of training is important for organisations because of how resource intensive it can be to put staff through training, and therefore this must be a prerequisite for your trainer. It also applies theory to practice by focusing on Bournemouth University's humanising values framework. And this is really, really important because it sort of is taking the fact that it's not only the person with the lived experience that needs to be taken into consideration as a human being, but also the carer, who we've already heard plays a critical role in the support of those with lived experience, but also the staff as well who are delivering the care, who increasingly are under lots of pressure for all sorts of different reasons in their care setting. Because of that sort of humanising factor, what is really, really important in this training package, and arguably in any training package, according to the What Works survey, is that opportunity for reflection, for applying what you have just learnt and understood to your own scenario and situation within your organisation, and to be able to sort of really reflect on that and have a discussion and a debrief. And that's where a lot of the learning comes from, and where the ideas and motivation to change practice comes from. This does involve simulation activities, but it also purposefully doesn't require lots of simulation kit. This is not high-tech simulation suites that we're talking about here. Although, again, with the adaptability of training, a skilled trainer can bring in things such as the simulation suits or goggles to enhance the experience for that group of individuals. I think it's important also to say that the simulation activities, there's role play in this, and that does send some people running and screaming out of the room. But this is very purposefully done in very small groups in order to create a safe environment for that learning, for that discussion, to develop, as I say, that understanding and change practice. So what have we done so far? We have rolled out DELTS 2, having reviewed the programme, listened to the evaluation that came out of the DELTS 1, and it was rolled out in each of the 13 Health Education England local office areas. So that's nationwide, and that happened last year. And as a result, through that approach, we were able to get nearly 200 attendees through that initial training programme. And what is absolutely key, because just to do something and then leave it is not good enough, we also commissioned Bournemouth University to make sure that they evaluated this, to see the impact of this and the change in attitudes and change in practice. And the primary sort of evaluation has had a really high evaluation rate of 93%. And certainly Michelle is here a little bit later on, able to answer some of your questions perhaps in relation to that evaluation. So the next 3 slides are snippets of clearly a far more extensive piece of research. And it's self-rated knowledge before and after the trainer workshop. The green and the blue I identify those where they were signalling they either weren't informed, fortunately not that many, and those who were informed very little. And the second set is the change, so the before and after. So clearly, an indicator, but demonstrating a degree of value from those who have attended those particular workshops. This particular slide is to share with you the outcome from one of the questionnaire questions. And again, it is saying that those who attended the training felt it was of value, and particular areas of the programme were deemed to be particularly valuable too. So in terms of that phase of the evaluation, it was very clear from the team that individuals valued being brought together to share what they were doing currently and to learn together in this particular education and training delivery. There were individuals with different base levels of knowledge and experience, and that was reflected in the findings. So for some, this was fairly new. For others, this was, I suppose, a top-up. And a general sort of, for those perhaps who are already providing education and training programs within their trust or area, reassurance about their own programs that was going along on the same lines, and alternatively areas for further development. And a real focus on that sort of holistic perspective, which is clearly, we're looking at person-centred care, one of the aims. The barriers, again, we're not there. There are barriers, and a lot of that was around resourcing, not only in terms of finance, it's that opportunity cost of taking staff out to train and also taking trainers out to train others, even though this is the trainer model that is designed to be sustainable. These are real service pressures out there, and these have to be balanced. There was also some query around the cost of potential simulation activities, but I think the reassurance that actually you do not need to have high technical kit to deliver this training at all. That's not the purpose. It's based on simulate scenarios. So you have the scene setting, you have instructions, a simulation activity, some role play, and some teaching points, and this whole sort of feedback, reflection period. Really, again, looking at different perspectives. And in some instances, different information is given to the different role players so that they have a different perspective on the situation to hand. And I suppose, first and foremost, this is not just about dementia as a memory issue. This is about all of the other challenges that those with lived experience may be encountering. So some of the simulation activities will support perhaps the sequencing and difficulties that those with lived experience may challenge in relation to that. The next steps for DELTS, we're looking to launch in May during the Alzheimer's Awareness Week. But given the audience here today, we couldn't resist sort of whetting your appetite and really giving you the heads up on this resource to say, please look out for it. It will be free of charge. It will be downloadable from the Health Education England website. And further evaluation is ongoing in relation to this. That's not the only thing Health Education England is doing. And this slide attempts to capture some of those. I'm conscious we're really sort of tight on time, but what I would say, you'll have a copy of these slides, so please do access them. The website will have my contact details, Dominique's contact details. Please do pick up any issues with us. But I think there is a progress is being made. Our particular challenge was around growth in numbers of staff trained. We're now looking at Tier 1, just under the million. We're in the middle of a next count, and we are really hopeful that we may top that million. So that will be a real milestone. As I say, we're not there completely at all, but actually we're making the good progress that I think Dave mentioned earlier on. If you are a trainer, or if you are commissioning training, there is a way in which you can look at your current training package and map it to the Dementia Core Skills Education and Training Framework. It is available through our website. And also, we've been looking at quality assurance. How do you know what good training looks like? So we've worked with Leeds Beckett University to devise a quality assurance tool. And again, you're either delivering or you're commissioning education and training. Test out what you're currently doing and see whether or not there are any gaps. And then you can work to using some of the resources that we have available online, perhaps to enhance your training packages, because I think it's really important that we meet the minimum standards that we're pushing out there. Ongoing initiatives are there for your consideration. Examples of good practice, I would encourage you to have a look at those. Again, they are free for those using it. Finding patients and finding patients. We're currently working with Leeds Beckett University to develop training tools that will lift them from Tier 1 to Tier 2. And if I can possibly mention the Dementia Guide for Carers and Care Providers ebook, we shared that at this event last year. But actually, this is quite important. We still ask or hear the phrase, you know, what's out there for carers? And we work a lot with those with lived experience and carers. And this particular product was developed specifically in response to carers who said, well, what is the education and training and guidance that you can offer us as carers? I'm going to also leave you with the slide. DELTS, to bring it to the current position, has required a lot of engagement, and this slide gives a flavour of those who were engaged in. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry, it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour.